recording. So this evening is accounts payable. I'm a firm believer that if you cannot buy correctly, you do not have a business. Anyone can sell. But if you're buying efficiently, you can sell better because you're making more margins, or you can be more competitive from a pricing point of view. Buying is, as you know, an art, and these are probably cliches, and you guys are saying, you're telling me that what I know already, but good procurement is an art, not just on price, but on lead times, optimization. You know, we talk in Palladium about increasing turnover, optimizing or increasing margins, but increasing turnover, if you don't have it in stock, you don't buy it correctly, you're not going to sell it. So, yes, increasing turnover is also about effective buying, and managing the GPs in Palladium is really what it's all about. So, can you make me the presenter? No, not yet. I could probably let you speak though. In fact, I think everyone can speak. Let me just open this up. Okay, so, right, you are a presenter. Admin see it, presenter. You there? Okay. So I'm just going to back. Okay. All right. So I'm not sure what that was about, but anyway, I'm back as presenter. So let's go. So if I go into the control panel, can everyone hear me? Anyone, any messages? I just want to mute background noises. Okay. Okay, this will be fine. Alright, so if I go into the control panel here, remember, everything happens in the control panel. Well, the bulk of the settings under control panel options. And in accounts payable, we have the standard aging settings, blank reference numbers like we had, default department by user or by vendor. It's the same function we had in accounts receivable. Document processing mode. Do you want to park on the quantity field? Probably yes, I want to park on the quantity field. Account numbering, how you create the account numbers if you want. Activate purchase cost variance is active and warn when purchases is over 5%. So really what that means is when I'm doing any purchase document and it's greater than 5% of what I bought it for previously, it's going to warn. So it just facilitates a good buying ethic. Blank authorization reason codes, authorizing price changes or whatever you want to set the management on. And when you create a bulk reorder, so we can create a bulk order form that we can send out to 20 vendors. This is when you create it, do you want to create a purchase order or a purchase requisition? If I say purchase order and I use purchase order authorizations, you'll notice it moves to purchase requisition, because the whole concept behind purchase order approvals and authorizations is requisition and approving to purchase order. That is in the mobile app, but it's not active yet. When you create a return from the invoice document or from the return icon, like we did with credit notes last night, payment approvals, so blank departments allow payment approvals. We can have again a workflow on payments. So we can go from a payment request for payment and convert it to a payment. A lot of the other systems don't have the request for payment, but a lot of times it's EFT, so we need a remittance advice. So it's a pre-approved remittance advice is effectively the request for payment. Okay, so say have to be from an approval or not. You can still use the function, but it's not mandatory. Under settings 2, auto print invoices on record or update, clear document on record, display vendor item code and description on purchase documents, allow payments on invoice entry, allow processing on document line total, default number of days, prompt on open GRVs, and on the GRVs, allow back order or partial. So I'll warn. So if I do a purchase order, I will warn whether I want to maintain the back order or not. Do you want to blind receive on the quantity on the GRV? Do you allow over receiving? And do you want to auto print the GRV as you record? Accrual processing. This is a new feature that was added in. Use the GRV for item cost or use the vendor invoice for item cost. So very important. The differences between the two in Palladium at the moment. If you do a GRV for 5 items at 5 Rand, and then you end up doing a purchase invoice for 6 items at 7 Rand, Palladium will actually reverse the GRV and recreate the invoice. So the cost will be actual per the invoice. If you've sold one, of course it will bring in one at the sales or the PO value and the balance at the actual price, and the difference will go to the purchase variance. Use GRV for item cost will actually use the GRV price and it won't allow you to adjust. So you see there, no document adjusting on vendor invoice processing. Depends on really what you want to do. But I find this works exceptionally well. So that is it there. Again, one of the other functions that we spoke about, welcome Clarence, was, I forget now actually what the hell I was going to try and say. Sorry. So into accounts payable, under vendors, we go into the settings under vendors. So under the settings here, can you create a vendor invoice by creating a new invoice? No, I have to create from a GRV. Is it an inventory vendor or an expense vendor? All it does is just, if it's an expense vendor, it will just default that account on the purchase document. Nothing spectacular. Okay, and then default department, default category, and going back through into the categories, user security rights by category. One of the other functions on the purchase documents is we have the ability under control panel, this is where I was going, I just forgot, inventory and services, display item images on purchase orders, for example. So it's not only limited to sales, it's limited to purchases. And where the actual request came from was someone that buys from China. So they wanted the picture of the item sent to the Chinese. So that's where that came from. And that's also where the user rights by category came from. It was on suppliers, not on customers. A lot of times we think everything's customer driven or customer centric. This is very much supplier driven and supplier centric for the images. Naturally, we couldn't have images on purchase documents without sales documents. So when we quote the clients for development, we've got to make sure that we develop it, from a more holistic point of view rather than very, very proprietary. So a lot of times that's where we lose money on development, but it's always good for the product. Like I say, we're not clever, we just got clever clients. So if I go into accounts payable here, again, payables menu, reports, vendor transactions, that's what I owe, and I can drill down into that. And vendor dashboards, just as your traditional graphs. It's always nice in a demo, something to start on a screen like this with the dashboards. You can also access the dashboards from up here as well. Okay. So going back into accounts payable, the payables is also day-based, so you can change details on accounts payable documents or due dates on terms. So a good example was incredible connection when they open a new store. I always remember my days supplying to retail was on the first invoice would be 60 or 90 days, and everything thereafter would be 30 or whatever days. So this is how they would handle it on their side, on the buying. So I'm going to activate purchase order approvals later. I'm going to go that second or last because I haven't set up any other suppliers. Now remember, you can set up supplier pricing actually in the vendor itself, and in the vendor term settings here, we have the standard settings, but we also have item pricing. So you can set up the item pricing in the items and set up all the vendors, or do it here. The advantage of doing it here is we can import it. So we can actually import all the vendor prices from this function. So I could say my vendor pricing is here and on the item. So vendor code, just close there, close window. So vendor description, and vendor price is 200. Now if it's an import, I can have an exchange rate, local price, discount, and a landed cost factor of 25%. And this gives me an estimated landed cost. The significance of this is I can change my selling prices based on my estimated landed cost, not just my last received cost. Because my supplier, I may not have bought it. So last received cost doesn't make sense. It's my estimated landed cost is really how I want to change my supplier pricing. Remember, to make margin, it's about the replacement value you want to value your stock on, not last received cost. The rand swings too much. So if my rate of exchange goes from 15 to 16 to 1, my last received cost or estimated landed cost has gone up 8%. But my last received cost is not. So I'm actually not making enough margin on effective buying patterns with items in my stock. Hope that makes sense. And don't ask me to repeat it. There's your supplier contacts, very much like the customer contacts. Basic settings, default settings, we touched on. Taxes. On suppliers now I can have withholding tax. So when I pay my supplier, I can set up to have a 20% or 10% or 5% withholding tax based on the current country. There's my history, user definable fields, trends, files, notes, and e-commerce. Now, we talk about Internet of Things and switching information. In accounts receivable, you saw us downloading the EDI orders and also sending off the information for the waybills to the vendors and printing it real time. This was a function we actually wrote for Honey Accessories, integrating from Palladium directly into the AccountMate version at Honey. Now look at the information that we were syncing. So this is the customer account details, and we were returning on the customer number. This password would authenticate. They would have to load this password on the ERP system to authenticate. This was a GUID or unique ID that was generated. So on the synchronization, item sync, so any new items on the ERP would download. Bill of material syncing, if they've got any kitting items. So this is all downloads. Item pricing sync, customer sync, because under the customers, multi-level marketing, so they're signing up new customers for me, it would go under my customers. Enable GRV e-submit. So when we do the purchase order, we authenticate. The purchase order goes directly into the ERP system as a sales order, real time. And then on the synchronization, you can see here purchase orders, item images, link customers, etc., etc. It is extremely comprehensive. This type of stuff's being carried forward now into the new web store integrations that we're doing with the Magento and Shopify. So it just shows you that the ability to integrate is, as long as there's an open API or we can authenticate, we can sync anything. any order to any supplier, disparate systems, they all have APIs these days. So also just back on the suppliers, I didn't touch on it, on settings, full multi-currency. So again, we can go back to the currencies, and then we can update the currencies real time, and we can set tolerances on the currencies, and you'll see it's coming through here in pounds. So on the create purchasing, we have the ability to do, first of all, the bulk request for quote. So that will create, for these items, I can do a multiple select. I can say goodbye that item, and that item. And I want you to do a quote from that vendor. So you'll see it should have a multiple select on the vendors. That is a bug, I would say. Design flaw. I'm not getting an error, but it should really not do that. I can add in different notes, and then I can say record. So on the record, doesn't have an email address. Would you like to continue? Yes. And I'll say yes. And these requests now have been automated and gone off, and you'll see I've got one here that will come through there. Now I'll say, right, I'm happy with this. I want to now approve it. So these are outstanding, and that's the approve tab. So you can close it, and obviously you're waiting. So I can go back in, and I can say, right, I want to go and say, this I'm going to buy from that vendor at 20 Rand. I'm going to change the quantity to 30 because I can't change the quantities. I probably should be able to change the quantity there because it's going to pull through on the approved side, but I suppose I would have to just go and edit the request. So I'm going to choose this from them at 10 Rand, and I'm going to buy this from these guys here at 11. So I'll say price is 300, 26, and then I'm going to say approve it. And I've just created 3 purchase requisitions with all the details copied from that reference there, the request for credit, the bulk request. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. The other way is just to go and do a requisition. I can go in straight and do a requisition. Remember that if I set to activate drop shipments, I'll go into control panel, options, I'll go into receivables, settings 2. You guys, I know you all know this because you did this last night. You were so excited that you carried, you did this. I'm going back into accounts payable, and control panel, accounts payable, and I'm going to process on the total because this is generally where you get your rounding issues from. So I'll go into payables, settings 2 tab, and settings 1 tab then. Allow processing on document line total. I'll say yes. I couldn't find it. I promise you, when I'm doing presentations like this, I don't know why I generate a blank. So I'll choose this vendor here, and I can then do a few things. I can copy from a sales order. So if I go and copy from a customer there, I'm hoping I've got a sales order. Let me just go back in history here. Otherwise, I may have to just create one. I'll need to go and create one. So it's going to be 2 secs. Accounts receivable. I've got a sales order. Choose this TST002. Choose my item there. So I'll record there. And then I'm going to go back into accounts payable. Requisition. Choose my vendor. Copy from my sales order. I have TST002 there. There's an open sales order. It says, do you want to make the delivery address the same as the customer? Yes. So that's in terms of where we regard drop shipments. Now the system has brought in a price of 23. Now, on this item, I haven't set up supplier prices. So if I look at supplier and inventory item, I've got a supplier price of 23. So I'm just going to close there for a minute. So if I go into my vendors, accounts payable, and I go into my vendors there, I think it was TST001, I don't suppose it really matters. Item pricing, I don't have anything. So how Palladium works on the supplier pricing, it is at 3 levels. If I go over into my inventory maintenance, and I go into choose an item here, so if I choose this item here, the system says, first of all, look at your vendor pricing. You don't have any. But if you did, use the vendor pricing for that vendor. If not, go to the item summary and use last received cost, or use a default cost of 30 Rand for that item. But it doesn't make sense because it's all vendors. So ideally you want to import, but you can use whatever you like. So in the last received cost, you'll see there the 23 Rand. The statistics, you'll get your 23 Rand as last received cost there. So going back to my purchase order, wrong icon, I go into my request for quote. So I can choose my supplier. Like I say, I can copy from a sales order, or I regard as Palladium's best kept secret. Although I said that last night about the freehand quotes, we've got a little mini order form in there. So the order form will tell you what you buy or what you need to buy, and there's your inventory items, and there's my to order quantity based on my minimum maximum levels. And you can refresh that on the criteria up there. There's my available, on order, minimum level, maximum level, sales month to date, sales last month, sales in the last 365 days, 2. Yeah, we don't sell much in this business. So last cost buy to stock ratio, because you can buy in different units of measure, selling price, GP, so you can really get a lot of information from this little function here. I've only got one inventory item in there. I can also just go and buy service items. I could maintain the pricing of the service items. It's not going to be on the order form because that's generally stock items. It says, look, you're selecting it, you've already got items in there, you cannot do it. Again, I can drill down into suppliers. I can get all the information I want on the suppliers. There's my open orders. I can drill down on my required date. I can adjust the order and change things as I like with full document revisioning on the changes as we spoke about. And at this point in time, I could say, well, I'm going to buy this for 30 bucks. It says you're over your price tolerance. Would you like to continue? So I say, okay, I'll continue. But let me check my purchase history on these items. And there's the purchase history. I last bought from this guy here at this price. So not only do we warn, but we give you 365-degree visualization or view on what you've bought for that item going back in history. We can also go into item inquiries from there, into the item, and then I can go into my vendors, the items that I buy, sales history, purchase invoices. I can go to purchase orders. I can kick this into grids. I can export it. I can drag and drop groups, whatever really you like and you want to move stuff around there. I could even go there and change the vendor. Vendor filter all vendors on this inquiry. So it's not necessarily limited to one item, one vendor. Okay, so you can have the filter or you can drop the filter on that. Again, I can import these items from Excel and or I can copy from other purchase documents. So purchase history or purchase order history, I can go in and copy from purchase orders on that supplier or change it from another supplier based on the date filters. So similar to sales. Now you look at last purchase cost was 23. There's my variance. Moving average cost is 23. There's my variance. Standard cost. There's my variance. You can use the standard cost in a multitude of ways. Remember what I said before? We could show people the margins on the sales documents based on standard cost. which could be my last received cost plus 5%. We can write a trigger for that. So we've got some SQL fundies that I've been talking to, so the guys know exactly who they are. Either that or they're good liars, but either way. So the ability out there to do that is out there. I can go and adjust. I can change that to 25. 25. So we calculate average cost by item by warehouse. So it's a moving average cost. Okay. You can go into, if you go into negative, you can set the system to go into negative at 0 cost or at last received cost. When we come out of negative stock, we will come out of negative stock at last received cost. If you receive the goods at a higher value than the last received cost, it will put the difference to a purchase variance. So this is where the legacy systems and the pastels of this world don't allow or don't recommend negative stock, because they're coming out of negative stock at the purchase price. So if I have one item at 30 Rand in stock and I sell 2 and I got into negative stock at minus 30, in a pastel environment, if I receive that at 27, I'll be 0 in hand at minus 3 Rand, and that's where integrity goes out. Palladium will receive it at 30 and put the 3 difference to a purchase variance account. We will always come out of stock of what we went into negative at. We will always get out of negative at what we went into. Okay, it's common sense, but hey, like I always say, common sense just isn't that common in some of these programs. We were doing with our agency today, and we were talking about common sense features and sending invoices, copy invoices with statements, and showing the last purchases when you're doing a purchase order, and having the variance warning. And they're going, they're saying, yeah, that's sort of obvious, isn't it? So it's not that obvious to some. So there's the yellow. The yellows are changes. Red would be deleted, so I can adjust again. I'm going to harp on the feature a little bit, because this is the feature that sells systems. I can add in this item 20. I can change that at 100. I can actually go and delete that item. I'll record it, view the history, and you'll see the added green, deleted red, changed yellow. And of course, you can email all the documents naturally as attachments, and I show the user entered, and we finger the last user throughout the system. But obviously, all changes are written to the database as well. So then I can convert from the requisition to a purchase order, and I can convert from that, and I can record. I can only convert from a purchase order to a purchase quote to one purchase order. However, I can convert from a purchase invoice from a GRV, or I can convert from more than one. So if I had more than one purchase order or purchase invoice, I could convert. It just depends. It wants a vendor invoice number, and I'll record there. At this point in time, I can print labels. Also, I can go and do a GRV, so I can load the purchase order, which is there. Remember, we set the rules on how you can create a purchase invoice in Palladium by supplier. So this one, I would say, document options, document notes. I can only create a purchase invoice for the supplier from a supplier invoice. You see on all the screens, we can print labels. We can print labels there at time of receiving. On our mobile application, we can automatically print labels on the GRV function. And I've asked Big Able to send you guys the link, those that want it, on version 69, the multi-bin version. There's going to be updates every second day, but our mobile runs on the multi-bin version. So we're plugging holes and fixing stuff, but we can create you as a user. We can give you the mobile app on Android. We'll create you as a user. We'll give you the connection to the database and to Palladium. You can go and do a purchase order. Then you can immediately see it on your mobile app as a GRV, and you can start recording and playing around. But I would ask for feedback, because what you see is not right. We need as few clicks as possible. Certain items are serial items. You can go and create your own items and do whatever you like in the database. Okay, you'll all have admin rights. I think it's pretty fun to do this. But the minute you show a client this stuff on the mobile, it's a game changer. You can go and do a sales order, sales quote. You can sign to glass, update. Immediately it's refreshed. So it's pretty cool. The receiving really works quite nicely. But you know what? You be the judge. Don't take my word for it. So you can go and create a straight purchase invoice based on the supplier, just like customers. Hopefully this one works this time. So under settings, I cannot create a supplier invoice. So it's about creating workflow. So when people say, what kind of workflow do you have in Palladium? Yes, we've got PO approvals, but we can define by customer or by vendor whether how we allow them to create invoices or how we force the process flow of their documents. Payment approvals, purchase order approvals, inform authorizations on price overrides, temporary credit limits. There's actually a lot of workflow rules that we tend to take for granted as a process, or like creating the payment advice as well, or credit note approval. So all these things are workflow related. So if I go in and do a purchase invoice now for that guy, it's not there. TST001 is not there. Simple but effective. It's just said, you actually have an open document, open GRV. It's popped up. I set it to pop up, and it brings through the GRVs. It wants a vendor invoice. So one of the other things that we have in Palladium is a lot of people have on the risk payables reports. We have the order items for the reorder report. So I think it might be in inventory. So the reorder report here, we can explode manufactured items as components, and even our assembly. If that assembly is set up and assigned to the calendar, assembly is the straight kitting, it will still explode those items and will actually allocate those items as well. But that report can be automatically populated into this form. Now, what it really does is it says, I'm doing a reorder. Can everyone hear me all right? I'm seeing there's an error coming up. You guys hear me? Anyone? Everyone? I don't know if I should close that. I'm going to close this. Wants me to close stuff. So what this does, it says, right, don't run the reorder report. I'm going to take the reorder report and populate it directly into this reorder form. Do you want to do it by company or by location? So remember, I'm not sure you remember. It'll be in the exam though. This is one of the exam questions. Who's registering in the university? So if you go to the reorder, we can set reorder at company level or by location level. Okay? And it says, right, calculate. So what is my supplier lead time? It's going to be 30 days. I want to carry 30 days sales in stock. And I'll say, okay, this is what I want to do. Then what I'm going to do is I'll go into my inventory forecasting and I'll say, right, I want you to now create my reorder levels, set my minimum maximum reorder levels by company or by location. Well, I want to do it by a company level. So I want you to calculate my usage from October to December last year because it's seasonal. And I want to load the items. So it says, well, there's your items, there's your sales for that period, there's your daily sales. We're not doing too well. So, but I'm going to say my adjusted daily sales is 100. My order lead time is 30 days. My safety factor, well, I'm going to actually update my safety factor. We've actually added the function to include it here on the fly. Thank you very much, Mr. Stephen Wright, who did it for us. So now it's updated and updated the master file. So adjusted daily sales is 100 a day. So my old minimum level is that. So I want to calculate my new minimum level. So I haven't got my order lead time. Why didn't my order lead time come through? Let me just check this. Did I save it? Reorder. Order lead time is 30 days. Okay. So let's see if that's saved, because that is a new function he just added in now to this beta version. Let me just check. Reorder. So it did save. Okay, that's a good sign. Then we go into my inventory forecasting. I'll load it. My average sales is 100. So my new minimum level is going to say 100 a day times my order lead time, because I need to reorder at least 30 days before. So my minimum level to trigger the order is 100 times 30, 3,000, plus my 15%, 450, 3,450 is my minimum level. Happy days. Days sales to carry in stock, I didn't put any. So I want to carry, because it's imported, I carry 45 days in stock. So I'm going to update that. And it's got a refresh button there, but it actually automatically refreshes. So I'm going to say day sales is 45. So it's refreshed the whole thing. That's why. So it's going to update all the lines. So I need that to be 15%, 30 days, 45 days, update. And that should now work. There we go. So it's not just the one I changed. And my new maximum quantity is 7,950. Happy days. So I'm going to save that. I think we should move the save down the bottom. But we can import and export this, and we can show inactive items or exclude items that we set for forecast only. We're now going to my inventory maintenance. Now go into my inventory maintenance here, and I'll go into my reorder, my fill to point. I've updated by company, remember. Minimum level, fill to point. Okay? And now I've got two other values, economic order factor, so the multiple. So I can order from a supplier in multiples of 100, right? I don't order in multiples of 1, and my minimum order quantity is 1,000. Okay? So now when I go into that reorder form, it will calculate everything that we've just done on accounts payable and going to create reorder from purchase order. I'm doing it at company level. I'm going to load the items. It says you required 5,800. Guys, how cool is that, man? Come on, eh? Flipping awesome. It hasn't selected a default supplier because I don't have one. So I'm going to add a supplier for this item. And I'm going to say, I'm going to use my vendor. So it's in Chinese. Vendor. This is also when we set up the extended, so my vendor price is 200. For the purposes of this, I'm going to just select him. It would have selected my default supplier that I select. If I had more than one, it would have defaulted it with the ability for me to change it there. Okay. I can then go and add in another item here. Abel, if you're listening, this was never around when you were here, pal. This is a cool feature, right? I'm going to sell this. Does Exapta have that? I mean, not Exapta, X3. Don't tell me. For the moment, it doesn't. Okay. So that will populate these two items. I'm going to say 1, but I could change the quantity I'm ordering. I'll change my tax code. Again, look how cool this is. Into the purchase history. I can drill down. If I change suppliers, this information here changes by supplier. So in this supplier, this is the information I can drill down. You see the fonts are slightly new. This is developed in WPF, but this developer has actually used the wrong size fonts, I think. I can drill down to item inquiries, and I can generate a purchase requisition. I will create 2 purchase requisitions. Copy from reference is the bulk order form. And I can go into that. So it actually keeps document numbering for all of that as well. It doesn't actually close it down. So if I was to go into my purchase requisition, they would be there. You can bookmark any document, including sales and purchases, so I can adjust and bookmark it. The significance of bookmarking is that when I'm going to open a document, I can search for bookmarked items only, or I can go in and if I copy, so I can go in here and say, right, I'm going to create new. It's in purchases and sales, and so I can actually go and say copy from purchase documents, bookmarks, and I can say copy from a bookmark sales document. So I can actually copy from a sales document to a purchase document, or the other way around using the bookmark function. Okay. So basically, that is purchases in a nutshell. Now, if we go into purchase order approvals, I'll just create a user. So what we're going to have to create for you is, let's say I'm going to create an admin user. So ADM 987, ADM 987. The reason I'm choosing 987 is because it forces me to change it when I log in again, so I'll change it to 123, otherwise I'll forget. New, so I'll say Abe, and 987. And I actually do trust this old bugger because I've known him for about 15 years, so I'll give him admin rights. And then I'll go and open here, and I'll go in, and I'll go into my sample, and I'll go in as Abe here. Okay, and so now I'll go into control panel, options here, accounts payables, enable purchase order approvals, default document limits, default vendor limits you set by user. So I go into accounts payable. Now you'll see here purchase order approver setup is available. So I'm going to say approver limits. So I'm not going to give Abe rights to approve. I'm going to take the rights to approve, document limit, notification, SMS, email, or email and SMS. So it wants details. So the admin hasn't been set up, so you can't choose email and SMS. The system should not have allowed me to save it. It should have gone to none. So you all know that's a bug, right? This isn't enterprise level control, Jan. This is actually user right control. We could have probably had it in the control panel, but we just put it there, probably to fill up space. I'm not exactly sure. So you can go and set by vendor, by limit. Or if you leave it blank, I think it's unlimited. And there's a notifications, you can mail merge and do stuff and send it. Great idea in a demo. I never do it because I never prepare. That's why I'm stepping aside and letting the guys that do this a little bit better than me prepare. So I'll go in there and I'll go in as Abe and we'll create a purchase requisition. Again, from bulk, we can create them in any way we like. And he's going to create an item here. 21, let's say 100. 30, gets an error because it's over the value. For stock, whatever it is, and it's going to available approvers. It should have defaulted available approvers. So there's only one approver. It should have defaulted, but it didn't. So we can argue. I would say a small bug. But once you set up multiple items and you have multiple approvers in a sample company, you'd pick that up. On a real live environment, you'd never know. And that would have sent me an SMS or an email. I can set you guys up with SMSs. What we can do is on the sample company, I'll set up the SMSs. We'll set up some credits, and you guys can SMS yourself. But if you guys want set up, please can I ask you just to give us feedback and let us know. It's very important. This isn't our product. This isn't my product or Abe's product or this company's product. This is our product collectively. So You give us good input, it's going to go in, trust me. So now I'll log out, just open and go back in, and I'll go in there, and I'm going to go into, I think it's ADM 987, that's ADM 123, ADM 123, and you'll see in the background that Tobacco wants some bloody petty cash. So now I'm going in, and I'm going to accounts payable. On the new interface, if you guys remember the new interface, I had a button for approvers. That approval, awaiting approval, is there. I've received an email, I've received an SMS. We cannot click on that and go back, but it is a function in the mobile app. Okay, so once we go to cloud, that will be hyperlinked, and we actually could do it now. We could send an email to say, this is a merge of the request. Do you want to approve it now? Yes or no? Click on approve. But at the moment, I'll go into payment. There's a payment approvals, purchase order approvals. This is for me to approve. I can go in, I can approve or decline, and I can put notes on it. But because I'm a nice guy, I'll approve. At the moment, it does not go back and tell Abe it's approved. We're adding in the functionality to say, on approval, respond to requester, yes or no. And then it would be via email. We wouldn't do it any other way. Okay. So we've got a button here, I'm looking at now, change vendor. It should be disabled for PO approvals. There's a bug. So change vendor on PO approvals. Document lines, like I said before, assigning to projects, all the basic same functionality. And if this was a valid address, we could go and check the address on Google Maps. It's actually on all the documents. It's not a valid address. But hey, we can test it here. So we can adjust. So let's go and do, I think it's on the customer sales. So we'll go accounts receivable, sales order. So we are in building 6, Four Ways Manor, Office Park, 1 Macbeth Street, Four Ways. Also on the mobile apps, we do record all GPS coordinates and all movement for the users. At the moment, we're storing it in the Palladium database. We're busy writing frames so that it can be launched and track the users. So if you guys are using this app, I know you are. Just saying. In fact, everyone will know who you are. But at the moment, it hasn't been set to track you fully. It's only when you sign a document, or you post a sales document, or you actually, any document, when you record the document, we geotag you. So we can do that. And there's our office there. Isn't that just lovely? What did I do? I clicked on it. First of all, my spelling wasn't the best. I think I zoomed. What did I do? But anyway, so the interweb, the www is not working too well. But this is Four Ways, this is around the corner, this is us. Man. Unbelievable. It does work. Try it at home. So I think that's really everything. It just wants a valid line. That is everything on the purchases and procurement. But like I say, it's an art, and it's as important, if not more important, than selling. Any idiot can sell. It's about buying. And when we talk about customer price lists, changing the price list based on estimated landed costs, etc., etc., I can run any vendor aging report at any day in history. Okay, and on the BI, you can go back into their accounts payable, business intelligence. We've got purchase orders, purchase requisitions, purchase invoices, and you go and analyze, get the data, group the information. I'll choose all. fresh data. I don't have anything requested actually. That's a bad example. So I'll go to purchase orders. Also no data selected. Anyway, the data's there. It's all in the BI anyway. Purchase recs. No, nothing selected. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Hopefully you guys found it intuitive. I'll send out the video shortly, and we will send you guys details of the login probably tomorrow morning. So have a good evening and thank you very much.